When you think of Los Angeles, everyone has
Mm-hmm.
this image in their head.
Mm-hmm. It's almost pre-installed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even if you've never been there,
Yeah.
you can see it. You see the palm trees, the Hollywood sign, the sunshine. It's like the default setting for the American dream.
It's the postcard version.
Yeah.
And it's a very specific brand they've been selling for over a century now.
But then there's this other feeling. You watch a movie like Chinatown or L.A. Confidential, or you read Raymond Chandler, and you get this sense of something rotting just beneath the surface. It's stylish, it's dark, it's...
Noir.
And that's the thing. That's the key right there.
Yeah.
People usually think noir is just a genre, a style.
Right. Venetian blinds, a detective smoking in the rain.
Exactly. But for this deep dive, we really need to reframe that, because the research we're looking at today, specifically from John Buntin's book, L.A. Noir, makes a very compelling case.
Which is?
That noir wasn't a style. It was a historical condition. It wasn't fiction. It was the documented, lived reality of the city for like 30 or 40 years. So you're saying those movies, they aren't exaggerating the corruption and the darkness.
Oh, if anything, they tone it down for the screen. The reality of Los Angeles, say, from the 1920s through the 1950s, was a city that was structurally corrupt.
Structurally? What does that mean exactly? I mean,
Right.
We're not just talking about a few dirty cops taking a bribe here and there.
No, we are talking about a system, a city where the police force and the criminal underworld were, for all intents and purposes, operating as a single organization.
That's a huge claim, a single organization.
It is. But the data, the historical record, it all points that way. At one point, LA had a homicide rate that was rivaling entire, war-torn nations.
Wow.
And at the very same time, it was being aggressively marketed to the rest of the world as this pristine moral paradise.
That's the tension, right? That's what I really want to dig into today.
Yeah.
The gap between the sales pitch and what was actually happening on the street, it feels less like history and more like a battle for the personality of the city itself.
And the best way to understand that struggle, and this is why Buntin's book is so brilliant, is to look at the people who were fighting it. You can't see it in the abstract. You have to see it through the lives of the two men who defined that fight.
The two main antagonists.
Exactly. You have to track these two lives that ran in perfect parallel for decades, constantly crashing into each other.
Okay, so let's set the stage. In one corner.
In one corner, you have the ultimate lawman, William H. Parker. And get this, if you're a Star Trek fan, this is going to blow your mind.
Uh-oh.
Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, he was an LAPD officer who served under Parker.
No way.
Yes. And Roddenberry reportedly based the character of Spock on Chief William Parker.
Seriously, the chief of police was the template for Spock. That's insane.
Coldly cerebral. That was the description everyone used for him. He was rigid, completely devoted to logic, to hierarchy. He saw emotions as a fatal flaw, and he was famously, almost pathologically incorruptible in a system that ran entirely on graft.
Okay, so you've got Spock on one side. Who's in the other corner?
The total opposite, the chaos agent, Mickey Cohen.
A gangster.
The gangster, a former professional boxer, completely illiterate until his 30s, and wildly obsessive-compulsive. The man washed his hands 50, maybe 60 times a day.
Wow.
But he was brilliant on the street, and violent, and maybe the first gangster who truly understood and loved the power of the camera. He was a celebrity.
So it's Spock versus the celebrity gangster.
For the soul of Los Angeles. And their fight, it isn't just a simple cops and robbers story, it's the story of how modern LA was forged. From Prohibition all the way to the Watts riots.
Okay, I'm sold. But before we get to this epic showdown, we have to understand the city they were fighting over.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sales pitch earlier. And in the research, there's this phrase that just jumps out. It's the white spot.
The white spot. It sounds exactly like what it was.
It sounds deeply uncomfortable, like a racial slur.
And it was absolutely intended to be exclusionary. To understand 1920s LA, you have to understand a man named Harry Chandler. He was the publisher of the Los Angeles Times. But he wasn't just a newspaper man. He was, first and foremost, a real estate speculator.
Yeah.
He and his partners owned vast, vast tracts of land, most of the San Fernando Valley. He needed people, the right people, to move there to make his land valuable.
So the newspaper was basically a giant real estate brochure.
Precisely. But here's the fundamental problem with LA as a city. It doesn't have a good reason to exist where it is, not like other big cities.
What do you mean?
It doesn't have a great natural harbor like San Francisco or New York. It doesn't sit on a major river like St. Louis. It's a semi-arid desert basin that had to steal its water from hundreds of miles away.
So if you can't sell the geography, you have to sell the vibe, the dream.
You sell the weather, of course, the oranges, the promise of health. They called it the sunny cafeteria. But Chandler went so much further, he decided to sell moral and racial purity.
And that's where the white spot comes in.
Yes. They explicitly marketed Los Angeles as the anti-New York. They looked at the East Coast, which in their view was full of immigrants, Catholics, Jews, a mongrelized population. And they aimed their sales pitch directly at the Midwest.
And the pitch was?
The pitch was, come to LA. It's the last refuge, the last stand of the white native-born Protestant American.
That is just incredibly blatant.
It was the city's brand identity. It was a city free of unions. Chandler loathed unions free of vice and free of the so-called foreign element.
But looking at the sources here, that was a complete and utter lie. A massive structural lie.
Oh, it was the biggest lie in America. While the Times was printing these pious editorials, the city was secretly the Shangri-La of vice. And it wasn't even that secret. It wasn't hidden away. It was woven directly into the downtown grid.
Okay, walk me through that map. It's the 1920s. I'm in downtown LA. Where's the action?
Well, you start at the plaza, the historic center. Right there, you've got Sonora Town and Chinatown. That was the designated zone for opium dens, for fan-tan gambling parlors, prostitution. It was, officially ignored.
A containment zone.
A very profitable containment zone. But then you move a little south to Central Avenue. That was the Jazz Corridor, the legendary Central Avenue.
The Harlem of the West Coast.
Exactly. And this was the one place where races actually mixed, which absolutely terrified the white spot boosters. You had speakeasies, incredible music, a vibrant African-American culture.
Oh, okay, so that's the periphery. What about the heart of the city, the respectable parts?
This is the most shocking part. Pershing Square. Today, it's not much. But back then, it was this lush, tropical park. And it was the acknowledged center of what the sources call the steamy sex circuit.
In the middle of downtown.
Day and night, the poet Hart Crane wrote about it being a massive hub for gay culture, for cruising. It was open. And then just a couple of blocks away, you had Spring Street, the financial district, the Wall Street of the West.
Which I assume was buttoned down and respectable.
On the ground floor, sure. Banks, brokerages, all that. But you go upstairs in those same buildings. That's where the real money was. It was the nerve center of the gambling world.
Yeah.
Places like the El Dorado Club. So you literally had bankers downstairs and bookies upstairs in the same building.
This all sounds completely out of control. How do you run a city like this? How did the government keep the white spot image alive when there were opium dens and casinos running openly?
This is where we get to the most important concept for understanding this whole era. It was a single word. The combination.
The combination. It sounds like a code for a safe.
It was an alliance. It was the operating system of the city. In Chicago or New York, you might have a mob boss who corrupts a few politicians. That's not what was happening in Los Angeles.
What was them?
In Los Angeles, the government was the mob. The combination was a formal partnership between City Hall, the senior command of the LAPD, and the underworld bosses.
So who's at the top? Who is pulling the strings?
Well, it wasn't the mayor. The mayor, a guy named George Cryer, was a complete puppet. The real power was a political boss named Kent Parrott. He ran the politics.
And who ran the vice?
A man named Charlie Crawford. His nickname was the Gray Wolf. He was this shadowy underworld figure who ran the entire criminal enterprise of the city from a booth at a place called the Maple Bar.
I'm just picturing a smoke-filled backroom.
It was exactly that. If you wanted to open a casino, run a bootlegging operation, or even get a simple zoning permit, you didn't go to City Hall. You went to the Maple Bar. Crawford and Parrott decided if you could operate, and if they said yes, you paid them a cut.
So where did the police fit into this triangle of power?
This is the absolute key. In the combination, the police were the muscle. They were the enforcers. Their job wasn't to fight crime. Their job was to manage the market share.
Manage market share. That sounds like something out of a business textbook, not a police manual.
It was pure economics. Okay, let's say you're an independent bootlegger, a guy named Tony Cornero. We'll hear more about him. If Tony tries to bring in a shipment of liquor without paying the combination their tribute...
The police raid him?
Exactly. LAPD raids his ship. They smash his barrels. They arrest his guys. And to the public, reading the LA Times, it looks like great police work. Police crack down on vice.
But in reality, they're just eliminating the competition.
They're acting as a corporate enforcement arm. They're protecting the combination's monopoly. It's a protection racket with a badge and a pension.
That is just, it's so deeply cynical.
It's the way the city worked. The LAPD Vice Squad was basically the collection agency for the underworld. And because of this, the police department developed this very specific and very dangerous culture. They didn't serve the public. They served the machine.
I read something in the notes about a specific tactic they used called the roosta.
Ah, yes, the roosta. This was the signature move of Chief James Two Gun Davis. He was the chief for a lot of this era. And he was a character. He openly, and I mean openly, believed that constitutional rights were, well, an inconvenience.
He actually said that.
His philosophy was essentially that rights are for crooks. If you're a good, law-abiding citizen, you don't need rights because you're not doing anything wrong.
That's terrifying.
So he implemented the roosta. Police would just sweep through a neighborhood, arrest dozens of people without cause, hold them, harass them, roust them, and then let them go. It was a tactic of pure intimidation.
It's about social control.
It's about showing who's boss. So that was the city. A booming, sunny metropolis with a white spot reputation, secretly run by a shadow government of fixers and gangsters where the police chief didn't believe in civil rights.
Sounds like a powder keg just waiting for a match.
It was. And into this exact environment, in 1922, walks a 17-year-old kid from Deadwood, South Dakota. His name was William H. Parker.
Okay, let's talk about Parker. Because usually when you hear about corrupt police departments, you think of greed, guys on the take. But Parker seems different. He wasn't looking for a payout.
No, he was cut from a completely different cloth. To understand Bill Parker, you have to understand Deadwood. He was born there when it was still basically the Wild West, gold, guns, and women, as the saying went.
A pretty intense place to grow up.
And he came from an intense family. His grandfather was a prosecutor, a congressman, a very strict, legalistic man. But his father was a different story. He was dour, violent, and ultimately a failure. Parker grew up in this very unhappy, volatile home.
And how did he react to that?
He reacted to that domestic chaos by becoming intensely, almost unnaturally rigid. Even as a teenager, people who knew him described him as a good hater.
Good hater. That's a very strange compliment.
It meant he had zero tolerance for fools, zero tolerance for incompetence or moral weakness. He had this burning intensity. So he arrives in LA, part of that huge migration. He gets a job as a movie usher, catches movie fever like everybody else. But then he makes a personal mistake.
He gets married.
He marries a woman named Francette. She was a bit older, she was spirited, maybe a little too modern for the 1920s. And Parker was controlling, abusive. He couldn't handle her independence. And she did something very brave for the time. She divorced him.
Which, for a devout Catholic like Parker, that must have been a profound humiliation.
A total failure. He's left with nothing but his Sonora phonograph. He's a failed husband. He's struggling through law school. He needs a job. So in 1927, he joins the LAPD.
Not out of some calling to be a hero.
No, he needed a steady paycheck while he studied for the bar exam. That's it.
And what does this intense, rigid, good hater find when he puts on that uniform?
He's appalled. He looks around and he sees the combination in action every single day. He called his fellow officers dumb hoodlums. He saw them taking bribes, sleeping on the job, acting as hired muscle for gangsters. It drove him crazy.
Did he ever go along with it?
Never. And that's what made him so dangerous to the system. He became known as the incorruptible rookie. There's a story from his early days. It's almost cinematic.
Lay it on me.
He pulls over a drunk driver. The guy is completely wasted, swerving all over the road. Parker hauls him down to the station.
Seems like a routine arrest.
Except the driver turns out to be a man named John Arrington. And Arrington was a police reporter for one of the big papers. He was a made man in the political machine.
Oh.
The desk sergeant takes one look at the guy and tells Parker, "Let him go. You don't arrest John Arrington." It was one of those unwritten rules.
The classic get-out-of-jail-free card.
Exactly. But Parker just stands there, rigid, and says the law is the law. He forces the sergeant to book him. Now, of course, a judge dismissed the charges later. The machine protected its own. But the message was sent loud and clear. Bill Parker can't be bought. He can't be fixed.
And there's another story about him. With a shotgun. It shows a different kind of courage.
Yes. A hostage situation, a shopkeeper with a shotgun. Most cops would call for backup, try to negotiate. Parker just walks straight up to the door. He pretends he can't hear the guy, tricks him into opening the door a crack, and then just grabs the barrel of the shotgun and disarms him.
That's that Spock-like logic, just cold calculation.
No emotion. He assessed the risk, calculated the odds, and acted. It was pure logic.
You'd think a guy like that would get drummed out of the force pretty quickly. How did he survive in a department that was so rotten?
He was smart. He knew that one honest cop is a target. If you arrest the mayor's buddy, the mayor just finds a way to fire you. So Parker realized he needed leverage. He needed to change the rules of the game itself.
And this leads to maybe the most surprising twist in his early career. The rigid, authoritarian Parker becomes a union organizer.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? He became known as Comrade Bill. He helped organize something called the Fire and Police Protective League.
He started a union.
He did. But not for the reasons you'd think. It wasn't about better pay or vacation time. He was doing it to build a fortress around the police.
What do you mean, a fortress?
He was a law student. He helped draft 2 amendments to the city charter, 12A and 14A. They sound boring, but they changed LA history. They created civil service protections that made it almost impossible for politicians to fire police officers.
Ah, I see the logic. If the mayor can't fire you, then you're free to arrest the mayor's corrupt friends.
That was the goal, to professionalize the force, to insulate honest cops from political corruption. But here's the law of unintended consequences.
What happened?
By making it impossible to fire any cop without a mountain of proof, Parker also made it almost impossible to fire the corrupt cops. He inadvertently built the very shield that guys like Two Gun Davis used to stay in power for years.
He accidentally protected the same dumb hoodlums he despised.
Exactly. And he spent the next 20 years climbing the ranks inside that fortress he built, getting closer and closer to power, even serving as executive officer Chief Davis. He was playing the long game.
So while Parker is studying law and drafting amendments in LA, someone else is arriving in town. Someone who represents everything Parker hates.
We're heading east, across the river, to Boyle Heights.
To meet Mickey Cohen.
To meet Mickey Cohen. And if Parker's story is all about a search for rigid order, Mickey's story is about thriving in pure chaos.
And he wasn't an outsider like Parker, right? He grew up there.
He was born in Brooklyn, but his family moved to LA when he was just a toddler. He grew up in Boyle Heights, and unlike the white spot fantasy, Boyle Heights was this incredible melting pot. You had Jews, Italians, Mexicans, Russians, all living on top of each other. It was tough.
And Mickey started his career very early.
He was a hustler from the moment he could walk. His father died before he was born. His mother was exhausted trying to raise this huge family on her own. So Mickey hit the streets. He was selling newspapers at age 6.
But he wasn't just selling papers.
No, he was learning a fundamental lesson. Violence works. Violence gets you what you want. The story you mentioned. At age 9, he tries to rob a movie theater box office with a baseball bat.
At 9.
I mean, the ambition is admirable, right?
Yeah.
But it shows he had absolutely no fear. There's another story, even earlier. He's 7 years old. His brother is running an illegal gin still during Prohibition. The cops raid the place.
And Mickey runs and hides?
No. Mickey grabs a hot plate off the stove and smashes it over a cop's head. At 7 years old, that's a level of anti-authoritarianism that is just baked in.
He was feral.
Totally. And the system's response was to send him to reform school. And this is a crucial point for understanding his psychology. Reform school wasn't about reforming anyone. It was about punishment. It was torture.
What do they do?
They beat the kids with bicycle tires.
Bicycle tire?
Yeah. Heavy black rubber. It was brutal. And it taught Mickey a lesson he never, ever forgot. Authority is just a gang with better weapons and a set of keys. He decided right then he was done with the system. He never went back to school. He never learned to read or write.
He was illiterate well into his 30s.
Yes. So the question is, how does an illiterate, angry kid from Boyle Heights make it out?
He fights his way out. Literally.
He used his fists. He became a professional prize fighter, a flyweight. And this is the pivot point of his entire life. He's good enough that he moves to New York to train, and he walks into the legendary Lou Stillman's gym.
That place is famous.
It was the fetid jungle. It smelled of sweat and cigar smoke and stale liniment. But for Mickey Cohen, it was Harvard. It was Yale. Because at Stillman's, you didn't just have boxers. You had the people.
The peak.
That's what they called the mob, the made men, the bosses. And Mickey would see them sitting ringside in their silk suits with their diamond pinky rings. He saw the respect they commanded. And he looked at them and thought, that is who I want to be.
He didn't just want the money, he wanted the power.
He wanted to be the guy who could never be beaten with a bicycle tire again. So he started doing odd jobs for them. He went to Cleveland, tried to be a heister, a stick-up man, but honestly, he was kind of a disaster at first. He was too hot-headed.
This is the wrong guy story, right? It sounds like something out of a Cohen brothers movie.
It's a classic Mickey Cohen story. He's hired as the trigger man for a mob hit. He goes in, shoots the target, job done right. But then the victim's girlfriend starts screaming at the top of her lungs, "You shot the wrong guy. You shot the wrong guy."
Oh no, what did it do? Panic.
No, he gets mad, but not at himself for shooting the wrong person. He gets furious at the guy who pointed out the target. He finds the pointer, pistol whips him, and breaks his jaw.
He adds assault to a botched murder.
And it turns out the pointer was the brother of a local Cleveland mob boss. So Mickey had to run for his life. And he ran to the only place that really mattered in the American underworld at that time. Chicago.
Al Capone's town.
Capone's town. And this is where Mickey gets his PhD in crime. He gets an audience with Al Capone himself at the Lexington Hotel. And for a kid like Mickey Short, angry, illiterate, having the most famous gangster in the world welcome you, kiss you on both cheeks, that was like being anointed.
He found his mentor.
He found his father figure. And he learned a valuable lesson in Chicago. He learned that the fix was in. The system could be beaten because the system was for sale. He got into a gunfight guarding a gambling den, killed 2 men, and walked away without a scratch because Capone's people owned the cops.
Okay, so the board is set. We have Parker in L.A. methodically building a legal fortress around the police. And we have Mickey in Chicago learning that laws are for suckers.
Exactly. And meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, that old local system, the combination, it's starting to get sloppy. It's starting to rot from the inside out. And the big sharks on the East Coast, the national syndicate, guys like Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano, they're smelling blood in the water.
They saw a business opportunity, a hostile takeover.
A corporate takeover, absolutely. They decided it was time to organize the West Coast properly, Eastern style, and to live forever. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel.
Bugsy Siegel. He's more myth than man at this point.
He was the syndicate's West Coast representative, and he was perfect for Hollywood. He was handsome, he was charming, he secretly wanted to be a movie star, he was best friends with the actor George Raft, he lived in this absurd mansion in Holmby Hills with 6 different vanity rooms.
6 rooms just for getting dressed.
And a secret trapdoor in the linen closet, just in case. He was there to bring ruthless East Coast efficiency to the lazy, chaotic L.A. underworld.
And this is where Mickey Cohen comes back into the picture. He drifts back to L.A. as a freelance stick-up man, and he makes a mistake that turns into the biggest break of his life.
A huge mistake. He robs a bookie joint, pistol whips the bookie, grabs the cash. It's a standard Tuesday for him. But he has no idea that this particular joint is connected to the local Italian boss, Jack Dragna, and, more importantly, to Bugsy Siegel.
So he just robbed the new bosses of the city. That is usually a death sentence.
It should have been. Siegel summons Mickey to his office, demands the money back. You can just imagine the tension in that room. And Mickey, being Mickey, looks this legendary killer in the eye and tells him, and this is a direct quote, to go take a feck for yourself.
He said that to Bugsy Siegel, the guy who helped create murder and corporate.
He did. And Siegel just started laughing. He loved it. He was so impressed by the sheer insane guts of this little ex-boxer that he decided right then and there to take Mickey under his wing. Mickey became Siegel's muscle, his top lieutenant.
So now they are organizing L.A. Eastern style. What did that actually look like? How is it different from the old combination?
The old combination was all about local politics and personal relationships. The syndicate was about efficiency, monopoly, and scale. They moved aggressively to consolidate control. Their first target was the wire service.
The wire service. Explain why that was so crucial.
Information is money. The wire service was the telegraph feed that delivered horse race results from tracks all over the country to local bookies. If you controlled the wire, you controlled every bookie in the city. You knew the winners before they did. You could fix the odds. Siegel and Mickey seized control of it.
And they took over the Sunset Strip.
They did. They got into a war with a guy named Eddie Niels who ran a popular club. Mickey was relentless. He robbed Niels' clubs over and over again. In one famous heist, he even stole a diamond necklace right off the neck of Betty Grable.
Betty Grable, the movie star, like the biggest star in the world at that time.
The very same. Mickey basically terrorized Niels until he fled town. That established Siegel and Cohen as the undisputed kings of the Hill. And Mickey starts building his own brand. He opened his own bookie joints, his own casinos, and he started his own twisted version of public relations.
The turkeys.
The turkeys. Every Thanksgiving, he would send hundreds of turkeys to needy families in Boyle Heights, and also to the home addresses of every police captain in the city. He was buying goodwill on every level.
So the underworld is getting more organized, more violent under the syndicate. But at the same time, the forces of reform are starting to push back. And this brings us to part 5, the war for reform. And bizarrely, it starts with a cafeteria owner.
Clifford Clinton. He's one of the great unsung heroes of Los Angeles history. He owned Clifton's Cafeteria, which was famous for its wild tropical decor and, more importantly, for offering penny meals to the poor during the Depression. He was a deeply religious, righteous man, a true believer.
And he decided to take on the whole corrupt machine by himself.
He did. He got himself put on the county grand jury and led a citizen's investigation into Mayor Frank Shaw and the LAPD. He called his group Civic.
The machine must have gone after him hard.
Oh, they despised him. They tried to ruin him financially by jacking up his taxes. They used the papers to smear him, calling him public enemy #1. And when none of that worked, they planted a bomb in his house.
They bombed his house.
They did. He and his family survived, but that wasn't even the bombing that broke the city open. The real turning point, the moment the combination finally cracked, was the Harry Raymond bombing.
Tell us about Harry Raymond.
Raymond was a classic noir character, a former cop turned private investigator. He was working for the reformers, digging into the LAPD's secret spy squad.
Hold on. The LAPD had a spy squad.
Oh, yes. Officially, it was the Special Intelligence Unit, run by a captain named Earl Kynette. Their real job was to be the mayor's private goon squad. They dug up dirt on political opponents, blackmailed reformers, spied on anyone who threatened the Shaw administration.
And they decided Raymond knew too much.
Kynette and his men decided to silence him. They built a pipe bomb and rigged it to the starter of Raymond's car. Raymond gets in his car one morning, turns the key, and the whole front of the car just disintegrates in a massive explosion.
But he survives.
It is an absolute miracle. He survived 186 separate shrapnel wounds, 186. And from his hospital bed covered in bandages, he looked at the press and he fingered the LAPD. He said, "The cops did this to me."
That had to be the end of the line for Chief Davis and the mayor.
The trial was a public relations catastrophe for the establishment. Chief Two Gun Davis took the stand to defend his men, and he just fell apart. The judge described his testimony as a debris of words. Kynette was convicted, and the public outrage led directly to the recall of Mayor Frank Shaw.
A recall election. That's rare.
It was the first time a mayor of a major American city had ever been recalled from office. The people had finally had enough.
And who took his place?
A reform judge named Fletcher Beauron. And Beauron came in with a flamethrower. He forced Chief Davis to resign. He used illegal wiretaps to catch corrupt cops in the act. He even held a secret midnight meeting with Tony Cornero, the bootlegger, to get a list of every cop on the take.
Wait, the reform mayor met with a bootlegger to get dirt on his own police department.
It is pure LA Noir, isn't it?
Mm.
The good guys have to use bad guy methods to clean up the city. But it worked. The result was that the old combination, that local alliance between City Hall, the cops, and the crooks, was smashed to pieces.
But here's the great irony that I'm struggling with. If you smash the local police-protected criminal rackets, didn't that actually help Bugsy Siegel and Mickey Cohen?
That is the great, tragic irony of the whole reform movement. By destroying the local competition, the reformers accidentally cleared the field. They created a power vacuum. And who was there to fill it? The syndicate. The reformers inadvertently paved the way for organized crime to take over the city completely.
So the syndicate is rising, but they bring their East Coast violence with them. We have to talk about Murder, Inc. coming to Hollywood.
This is the story of Harry Big Greenie Greenberg. He was a former mob associate who was broke and started making threats about blackmailing the syndicate. Siegel decided he had to handle it personally.
Why personally? He's the boss. He has guys who do that kind of work.
It was pure insecurity. He'd been living in Hollywood, wearing silk ascots, going to movie premieres. He was worried the bosses back east thought he was getting soft, so he needed to prove he was still a killer. He drove the getaway car himself. They shot Greenberg down in his driveway.
But someone talked. There was a witness.
A man named Abe Kid Twist Reelis. He was one of the lead hitmen for Murder, Inc. His specialty was killing people with an ice pick through the ear. He got arrested and turned state's evidence to save his own skin. and he implicated Bugsy Siegel in the Greenberg murder.
So they actually arrest Bugsy Siegel.
They do. In a scene that's almost comical, they raid his mansion and find him hiding in the attic in his silk pajamas, giggling.
Giggling.
Nerves, maybe, or just pure arrogance. And his time in jail was a complete joke. The sheriff let him have a personal chef bring him meals. He had unlimited phone calls. He was even allowed to leave the jail to have lunch dates with actresses like Wendy Berry.
That is not how jail works for normal people.
Not at all. And then the case against him just collapsed. And it collapsed in the most suspicious way imaginable. The star witness, Abe Relis, was being held under 204/7 police protection in a hotel room on the 6th floor of the Half Moon Hotel in Coney Island. And one morning, his body was found on the roof of a kitchen extension 5 floors below. He fell.
He fell out of a guarded window.
With 6 cops sitting right outside his door, the physics of the fall made no sense. As the newspapers famously put it, he was the canary who could sing but couldn't fly. Without their witness, the case against Siegel fell apart. He walked free.
So Siegel walks. Mickey is his number 2. The syndicate is on top. And then the entire world changes. Pearl Harbor. World War II.
The war sends our 2 antagonists on completely different trajectories. Parker was deeply frustrated. He was stuck in the LAPD under a new chief he didn't respect. So he joins the army.
He goes to war.
He does. And he doesn't just peel potatoes. He gets into civil affairs. He ends up in Europe, helping to plan the police and civil operations for the D-Day invasion of Normandy. He sees what happens when society completely collapses into chaos.
How do you think that changed him?
It hardened him. It reinforced his belief that order was the only thing that mattered. He came back from the war with a military mindset. He started to see the police not as public servants, but as a thin blue line, an occupying force holding back the chaos of the city.
And while Parker is planning D-Day, what's Mickey's wartime experience?
Mickey tries to dodge the draft. He assumes the fix is in and he'll get out of it. But the draft board rejects him anyway, not because of a fix, but because they classify him as 4F for mental instability.
So he was officially too crazy for the army.
Exactly. But Mickey was deeply embarrassed. He couldn't handle the shame of being seen as a draft dodger, so he lied to his wife, went out and bought a $150 raincoat with epaulets on it, and pretended he was a general just for a laugh.
So while Parker is fighting Nazis, Mickey and Bugsy are cashing in.
They made an absolute fortune on the black market, selling rationed goods, tires, gasoline, sugar, and this is when they really start looking east, to the desert.
To Las Vegas.
The great pivot to Vegas.
Siegel and Meyer-Lansky, they realized L.A. was ultimately too difficult to control. Too many different police departments, too much reformist energy. They looked at the empty desert in Nevada and saw a blank slate. They bought the El Cortez Casino. They started the vision that would become the Flamingo. The goal was shifting from illegal rackets to owning the casa, legal, taxable, respectable gambling. But back in L.A., things were about to get very messy for Mickey. The war ends, Parker comes home, and we enter the era of the Mickey Mouse Mafia.
This is such a great pivotal story. Post-war, the LAPD Vice Squad, specifically the administrative Vice Squad, gets cocky. They tried to shake Mickey down for $20,000 for some political campaign.
The police are back to shaking down the gangster. The old habits really do die hard.
And for the first time, Mickey refused. He said no. He was the top dog now. He was tired of paying tribute.
That seems like a very risky move.
It kicked off an all-out war. Mickey, suspecting something, hires an electronics expert named Jimmy Valleas to sweep his house, and sure enough, he finds a police bug hidden under his living room rug.
They were wiretapping him.
Illegally. And Mickey didn't just get mad, he got even. He did his own digging and discovered that the police sergeant running the whole investigation, a guy named Jackson, was having a secret affair with a very famous Hollywood madam named Brenda Allen.
You cannot make this stuff up. The top vice cop shaking down the top gangster is sleeping with the top madam he's supposed to be arresting.
Mickey had him cold. He said he was holding a pair of bullets, meaning a pair of aces. He used that information to blackmail the police and expose their corruption in open court. It was a massive, humiliating scandal for the LAPD.
But the police didn't just roll over and take it.
No. This is when the Battle of the Sunset Strip begins. Mickey is attacked multiple times. There are shootouts at his haberdashery. His house is bombed.
And this leads to the famous armored car.
Mickey becomes consumed by paranoia. He spends $25,000 of fortune at the time on a custom-built armored Cadillac. He even gets permission to test the bulletproof glass by shooting at it on the official police firing range.
Wait. On the police firing range? the same police force he's at war with.
Yes. The lines were so blurred it was absurd. But there's this famous photograph of him posing next to this giant, hulking, armored car. And Mickey was a small guy, short and stocky. Next to this automotive tank, he looked tiny. He looked like a cartoon character.
And that's where the name comes from.
A reporter took one look at the picture and dubbed him and his crew the Mickey Mouse Mafia. It was meant as an insult, but it stuck. It perfectly captured the strange, celebrity-fueled absurdity of his reign.
So we're rounding out the 1940s. The battle lines are clearly drawn. The old local combination is dead and buried. The syndicate is powerful, but it's facing threats from inside and out.
And Bill Parker has returned from the war, more disciplined, more ambitious than ever. He's ready to make his final move to take over the LAPD and remake it in his own rigid paramilitary image.
And Bugsy Siegel is out in the desert pouring money into the Flamingo, completely unaware that his mismanagement and his temper are about to cost him everything.
It's the perfect cliffhanger. It sets the stage for the entire next decade.
So let's pull back for a second. We've covered a ton of ground here, from the White Spot Boosters to the Mickey Mouse Mafia. What does it all mean? Why does this particular struggle matter so much?
Well, I think we have to go all the way back to that title, L.A. Noir. It wasn't just a mood or a camera angle. It was about the structural darkness of the city. The great central irony is that the white spot of America, this place that was sold as a moral paradise, it produced two of the most extreme things in American culture.
Which were?
It produced the most professionalized, militaristic, and rigid police force in the country under William Parker. And at the exact same time, it produced the most celebrity-obsessed, media-savvy criminal underworld in the country under Mickey Cohen.
They really do seem like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
A city of extremes.
They are, and they both profoundly shaped the Los Angeles that exists today. Parker gave us the modern LAPD, for better and for worse. The focus on professionalization, the SWAT team mentality, the freeway traffic planning. Cohen gave us the modern celebrity criminal nexus, the glitz and the danger of the Sunset Strip.
So in the end, who won the struggle for the soul of the city?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? On paper, Parker won. He became chief. He held immense power for years. Cohen went to prison, faded into obscurity, and died of cancer. But if you look at LA today, the celebrity culture, the constant blurring of lines between entertainment and crime, did Parker's rigid order really win? Or do they just pave the way for a different, maybe more seductive kind of darkness?
A provocative thought to end on. The book poses the question, is Our Lady the Queen of the Angels the Dark Angel? Or do we simply bring our own darkness to her?
I think it's safe to say Parker and Cohen both brought plenty of their own darkness to the party.
I think you're right. That's all the time we have for this deep dive into the soul of Los Angeles. Thanks for joining us.